Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. It is the time of the month where I play along with the Mix It Up Monday YouTube and Instagram hop. We always start this hop off with some sort of sketch, and then we apply some mixed media to this sketch and go from there. So you could see the sketch up on the screen. I will talk you through the things that inspired me as I create my layout. So let's dive in. All right, I have got a piece of pattern paper here, and I'm going to start with being inspired by the background wood grain texture, and I'm going to create my own. So this is my first layer of mixed media here, and I learned this technique from a card making class with Gina K Designs, and she just swipes the ink pad across a sheet of paper to create this wood grain. Now I had intended for this to be a little bit closer together, my wood planks, but getting used to the spacing of your ink pad is part of that, and I'm not quite there yet. So as I work on this technique more, I will get there. But at any rate, I don't mind the little gaps between the wood planks, and I did add a little bit more detail with the edge of that ink pad to add some knots and more grain texture. And here I am with my water, and I'm going to spatter that on there for just a slightly more distressed look. And I will add a little bit more mixed media to this layout, but really this is kind of the main thing that I'm doing this time around. And once that has had a chance to dry, I pulled out my photos to go with this story. I had no idea what photos I was going to use, so I went to my story binder and picked something. And this is going to be a story about how my daughter likes to take pictures of my husband and I when we're out for family walks on the weekends. And the photo had an ugly orange fence in it, so I'm going to do my best to cover that up. And I think I did that pretty well and still allow the things to show in the photo that I want. Now, I thought this mixed media piece, which I did previously, I will do things and then save them away for other projects. I thought I was going to put this to use on this project, and I start working on it, and you'll see me ditch it later, and I'll talk about more why as we get there. But at any rate, I was trying to think about this photo and what colors I want to go with this layout. Because in the photo, my pink sweater or my pink skirt and my blue sweater are kind of noticeable. So they draw the eye more than some of the other colors in the photo. Oh, what I'm doing next here is that I'm going to do a little bit of stenciling because the inspiration piece did have this kind of fine diagonal layer. And because I'm going to do some stenciling, I need to know what color I'm going to use. So here I am back to dealing with those colors again. And I pulled a bunch of scraps from my scrap stash because I'm going to use those to layer behind, and that's perfect for all the scraps. And then I decide, since I've got blue and green going on in my mixed media and in blue in my sweater, I will stick with blue and I will add in some pops of pink. You'll see that shifts a little bit to be more focused on the pink a little bit later, but that is where I started off with this idea. And I am just going to ink blend with a blending tool as opposed to a blending brush through this stencil. Now, my tape was a little well used, so it didn't stick very well. And as I'm working on this blending, it starts popping up on me. And at some point, the whole stencil pops loose. So I will ditch that tape and then just go with holding it down with my fingers. And this stencil in particular is pretty wiggly. So I have to be sure to go with the grain of the stencil. I don't want to go crosswise across those lines because it will wiggle and blur the image. But I try my best to stay careful and I get that done. Because I am stenciling on vellum, I'm trying to replicate sort of the element that was in that sketch. I do want to heat set it because vellum has more of a water resistance property to it, but it will dry eventually. So I heat that up a little bit with my heat tool. And then I decided I liked that vellum layer better in the background because, and when I was working on this layer, I kind of knew this would be the issue, but putting it on top of all that mixed media, it was just getting lost. So putting it in the background instead of the foreground, like in the sketch, was going to do better. And this is the point where I've tried to move forward with this layout and that particular mixed media block. And the whole time I'm thinking, I don't really like this. And I kept trying to say, oh, when I get through more steps of it, it'll probably be okay. And I started getting through more steps and it was still not okay. So I do mix it up I ditched that piece, and it'll come back in another element of this layout, but I ditched that piece in favor of this floral block here. And that floral block pulls in some of the pink from my sweater. So I think part of it was the colors, and part of it was I had torn all the way around that block, and I'm realizing that I don't like that much distressing. One torn edge, like on the floral pattern paper there, is good, but when I do them all, it's too much. So I think that is cemented in my mind now. I think I kind of knew that already about myself, but really thinking about why you feel like something isn't working can help you realize what you like and what you don't like and how to not make those mistakes in the future. At any rate, I am going through my stash of scraps there, trying to find just little bits and pieces that I can layer up to mimic the layers from the sketch. And sorry that my layout gets a little off the top of the frame here because I kind of shifted my camera around a little bit, and it's still taking me a little while to realize that I need to pull all the projects back towards me to be in frame. At some point, I will realize it, and it will get back in frame, and you will see everything. All right, I got enough layers on there, and I start moving to, instead of the kind of spray of butterflies across the page, I'm going to do flowers. But before I can get to those flowers, I do need to pin down all of the rest of the layers. So I'm going to pop up my photo on a little bit of foam tape, and then I will get all of those layers glued down, and then I can start working on my photo. So here's the last bit of gluing down of those layers, and you can see some of it's hanging off the edge, and I will just trim that off simply with my paper trimmer. All right, and once that's done, I had started to pre-choose some floral elements, and I'm going to use these little bouquets, which when I was going through my flower supplies, I totally didn't expect that I would use these, but I like them. I made them for another project in another video, I think back in May, and I'll link you up to that video if you like these. It's just a lot of die cutting and then wrapping them up with some doilies and putting a little bit of twine on there. And while the walk through this kind of nature area isn't about bouquets, it is definitely about the spring flowers in the photo. The trees are in bloom. So I'm going to go ahead and use those bouquets on there because I like them. Now, I did hang it off the edge so that it wouldn't get too big on the page. I wanted to try and keep that lower element still an individual lower element, and it was a little painful to cut it off, but I will make use of the things that I can save and put them in other areas of the layout. So little bits and pieces from that will go up in the top corner of my photo block up there. And because I want to make sure that twine stays put, I will give it a little bit of a glue down. Now, I do have to put a little bit of pressure on some of these elements because they are felt. A lot of these little felty flowers are from an old Stampin' Up! Pack of embellishments. And then I have some that I've cut from other videos as well. And so fabric-y things need extra glue and extra time for that glue to soak through the fabric and to dry. So you will see me apply a little bit of pressure to help keep it down while we do that. And that is what those stamping blocks are there for. So the butterflies did flow from bottom left to top right. So I'm getting mostly my flowers to flow in that direction as well. Okay, I need a title for this layout, and I thought about just pulling out my alphabets, but I wanted to see what I could do with that mixed media piece that I ditched earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the letters for my title and die cut it and go ahead and give it a test run on this layout to see if I think it will work. All right, and with all of my letters back out, it is not perfect, but it's okay enough. And since I already did the work of die cutting everything out, I will go ahead and use that. And so you can see that I stuck with the blues and greens in my title, but all of my florals lean towards the pinks. And so that's how my my color palette kind of shifted a little bit from more blues and greens to a little bit more pinks, but it's all still in there. And I'm pretty happy with it. It's not the most amazing layout in the world, but I like it well enough, and I'm going to call it good. So I got my journaling on there, and then a final little doodly border, which I really like to do with these more open layouts. And then I'm going to call that one done. So I hope you got some good ideas from this video. I hope you will go check out all the other hoppers on this hop and leave them some love and get more ideas, because there's some really talented ladies in this group, and I encourage you to go check out their work as well. Let's see, today is Monday, so I will be back at least one more time this week with another video for you. And until then, I hope you have an artful day.